morning, everyone. Here is a reminder, if you're in Toronto Centre or York Centre, you have by-elections today. People's Party candidates are running. So are the Liberals. There's a Green leader running. There's a People's Party leader running. There's lots and lots of stuff going on. If you're interested in Canadian politics today, you can get out and scratch that itch by voting. So go and do that. It is your democratic right. Whether it makes any difference, I don't know. We'll see, I guess, right? We'll see tomorrow who gets those seats. The way the Liberals are going, I can't see, well, okay. The NDP won a big majority in BC yesterday, or 2 days ago, Saturday. And so I don't know what Toronto Centre is going to vote like. I haven't really been paying close attention to these races. So, I really have no prediction. I have no prediction whatsoever who is going to win. Will it be a Green candidate? Will it be a People's Party candidate? Will they get their first seat? I don't know. It's way up in the air. Will the Liberals sweep it? Will the Liberals pick up two more? It could happen. Will the Conservatives surprise in Toronto Centre? It's not likely. It's not likely the People's Party is going to get a seat. It's not likely the Green leader is going to get a seat either. So, that's just reality, right? So, very interesting situation going on, and I don't know. I don't have any prediction. So, we'll just see. We'll see. If it's two Liberal seats, I'm just going to roll my eyes. Because, I don't think that the Liberals have done... I've said this before. I think you can be a Liberal person, have liberal mindset, even the current Liberals, which are not traditional Liberals. They're not classic Liberals. You can have a classic Liberal mindset or a current Liberal mindset and be fed up with this Liberal Party because what they say and what they do are different. They are giving kickbacks to their friends and family. You can see the corruption and be sick of this group of people and still be a Liberal person, right? And I think that there's a distinction there. So anyway, regardless, moving on, Global News is reporting. As of November 9th, Via Rail passengers with a medical condition that makes it difficult to wear a mask must provide official medical documentation along with a government-issued photo ID. A government-issued photo ID? Can they ask for that? There are people who were saying that this is going to be fought in court, not constitutional, et cetera, et cetera. I think that WestJet is doing this. I think that people are willing to give up their rights to feel safe, and there are more people, according to this Twitter poll, 6,657, who believe that that's a good idea than a bad idea. Do you agree with this decision? 55.6% said yes, and 42% said no. I don't think it's a good idea. Patty Haydu doesn't either. She's in the Toronto airport. Remember when Andrew Scheer? I'll show you the article when Andrew Scheer got absolutely tarred and feathered for this. They're saying the bag just over her shoulder here. I'll make it big and I'll point to it. They're saying that the bag right here is a food bag, and she was eating from the food bag. That looks like a gift bag to me. Was she eating maybe? Who knows? The Rocky Mountain chocolates? I don't know. Are Rocky Mountain chocolates even open in Pearson Airport? I don't know what kind of bag that is, but it seems a little. I don't know. This Twitter person says, "Hi, Patty Haydu. I don't like wearing masks in indoor spaces either. But please don't undermine PHAC's efforts to reduce the spread of COVID-19. We all have to do our part. Please set a better example for Canadians." This is at Toronto Pearson International Airport. So Patty Haydu responds, and she says, hold on, Twitter's being crazy. She says, "Following public health rules is important to me. I wear my mask at all times at Toronto Pearson and only take it off to eat or drink as allowed." Right, but there's no food and drink in that picture, really, unless you believe that gift bag looking thing has got food in it. Weak, right? Here's Global News responding to an image posted on Twitter. The federal health minister said she only takes off her masks to eat or drink as allowed. "I'm following the rules," Patty Haydu responds to Twitter. This is the Global News. Federal Health Minister Patty Haydu says she took off a face mask at the airport only to eat or drink, following a Twitter post showing her without a face covering at Pearson Airport in Toronto. This is news in 2020. This is incredible. We're way around the bend. Like if somebody told me I'd be covering Mask Gate the second time, I wouldn't believe them. This is ridiculous. The photo of Haydu without a mask was posted Sunday evening by a self-described aide to Alberta's advanced education minister. I'm surprised they didn't put conservative education minister. It shows Haydu seated in a chair by herself with a piece of rolling luggage next to her, either speaking or smiling. Haydu replied by saying that she follows public health rules. Following public health rules is important to her, and she removes her mask only when those rules allow it, such as to eat or drink. She didn't actually say that. We just saw what she said. There's no food or drink apparent in the image, though there is an open paper bag just visible on Haydu's side away from the camera. A spokesperson, for the minister's office said that there was food in the bag, which she was having. She was having, yeah, totally, yep. In July, the then Conservative leader Andrew Scheer and Manitoba Premier Brian Pallister were photographed talking in a departure area at Pearson Airport without a mask, for which Pallister apologized. "Sorry about taking off my mask. I didn't mean to. It's against the rules to talk without a mask these days in public. I apologize to the Ontario and Canadian people." Right? Unbelievable, right? It's just crazy. But Miss Haydu says, "Don't believe your lying eyes. I was following the rules all along," right? Here's Senator Leo Housakis, and he says, "Don't tell me there isn't a media bias. Compare coverage when it's a conservative. Why is CTV News repeating the Liberal talking points as fact? They have the photo clearly showing the minister's office is lying. No food in sight. They should be calling out the lie and not furthering it." Yeah, I mean, well, good luck though. Here's the Andrew Scheer gate, right? Okay, Global News says Jeff Buxley. I think that's how you say that. "Why don't you go after her like you did with the other politicians?" And here's Andrew Scheer spotted without a mask at Toronto Pearson Airport. Like even the headline, right? The headline here is apologizing. Like, don't worry, citizens. Haiti responds to Twitter, says she only removes masks to eat or drink. It's okay. It's okay. She didn't break the rules, everybody. Don't believe your lying eyes, right? We have always been at war with East Asia, right? Right? That's it? Or Eurasia? Which one was the one they were always at war with, right? Anyway, it's unbelievable. It's unbelievable what's happening right in front of our faces. I'll show you this article just to give you a preview. Health Minister says China must be held to account if they weren't honest about the virus. But then she says China should do an audit of how they responded to the virus, and the WHO should do an audit, and then we'll do an audit too, and we'll all blah, blah, blah. Auditing yourself, like, oh, I guess I could have done better. It's like audit, how well did you do at your 2020 New Year's resolution, right? Did you lose weight? If you audited yourself right now for like a government body that was gonna, give you money or grade you on it, how would you mark yourself? Would you be honest? Would you say, yeah, I've tried my hardest? Yes, most of the time. Before 5 p.m. or after 5 p.m.? Most of the time. That's most of the day, right? Here's Patty Haydu.
Only do what the information, act on the information they're getting. And if China wasn't honest, that has a massive, not only economic impact, but lives are lost because of that.
If China wasn't honest, then they need to be held to account. But I can tell you this, the World Health Organization, although flawed, I will repeat, is an important organization in combating global pandemics. And we need to have global cooperation. So I will say this again, Canada has asked the World Health Organization to conduct a review of how they've responded to COVID-19 and the pandemic, and we will be doing our own review as a country.
So did you notice the pivot? The question was about China, and then she pivoted to we're doing our own review in Canada, and the World Health Organization is really, really important, regardless of what China does and how honest they were. The WHO is really important. So that's an interesting pivot. I didn't notice it until I was watching the video. I'm gonna rewatch Evan's question. Hold on. Yeah, I'm gonna play it again. Like, he is asking about China being honest, giving the right information to the WHO and to the rest of the world, and she pivots right away from China. Right away, immediately. This should be held accountable, and offers nothing with regards to meat on the held accountable. Yeah, they should be held accountable, but you know what's really important? Watch, it's crazy. Hold on. Watch.
Do what the information, act on the information they're getting. And if China wasn't honest, that has a massive, not only economic impact, but lives are lost because of that.
If China wasn't honest, then they need to be held to account. But I can tell you this, the World Health Organization, although flawed,
Pivot. I have to question. My episode 377, you can find it on YouTube, NewTube.app. And I've got lots of places you can find me. I'm worried that YouTube will scrub me at some point, but you can find me on Twitch, you can find me on Periscope, you can find me on NewTube.app. But 377, I speculated about, and I'm going to speculate again at the end of this episode, but this is the only, I didn't get any strikes or demonetized. It was monetized right away. But they said I violated their YouTube rules, and they wouldn't tell me what violated the YouTube rules after a review or whatever. Anyway, I speculated that because China got to Joe Biden in episode 377, they could probably get to a whole lot more people. If they've got the UN, they've got access to mayors, municipal leadership, and if they've got, and I'll tell you later on in this episode, there's a tab down here that talks about this one, that talks about their purposeful targeting of politicians to get dirt on them, just like Joe Biden's son, Hunter, and to use that to leverage and further their means and goals. And is it a reasonable postulation? Is it a reasonable thing to think that perhaps maybe Miss Haydu wants to pivot away from that China question as soon as, oh yeah, we should hold those Chinese accountable, knowing full well who else is maybe compromised by the same thing that she's compromised by? Speculation. I wonder if this one will be scrubbed as well. Watch me on NewTube.app. Watch me on my podcast. You can download the podcast, audio only. I've been meaning to talk about this a lot, but I keep forgetting at the start of shows. You can find me on either podcast store. You can find me all sorts of places. So if YouTube goes down, go to CanadaPoly.com and you can click the links there to find other places to watch me. But if you're interested, so I don't know if you are. I guess you would be if you're this deep into this video, you're probably interested. Okay, moving on. Okay, health minister says China should be held to account. I wanted to point this out initially because I thought it was such a throwaway line out of that whole interview. She pivots right away. Oh, we're going to totally hold ourselves accountable, and we're going to ask China to hold themselves accountable, and the WHO to do their own investigation. Yeah, it sounds like a great plan for people who know what the outcome of that investigation is going to be. WHO chief Dr. Tedros warns against vaccine nationalism. I think this is the dumbest thing ever. In a video address at the opening of a 3-day World Health Summit in Berlin, Dr. Tedros said the only way to recover from the pandemic was together and by making sure poor countries had fair access to a vaccine. There is no vaccine. And as far as I've heard, most people, well, okay, that is not necessarily true. The people in my circle say vaccine, not a chance. I don't know if the most people out there are clamoring for a vaccine. Things like this are supposed to create a market for it. They're supposed to create demand for it. And it's having the opposite effect. They're saying, oh no, the poor countries, we need to make sure that everybody, well, they're saying that you should vaccinate a small group across the whole world instead of vaccinating entire countries. Because of the speed it'll take to roll out the vaccine. And I'm saying, look at Sweden. That's all you need to do. Look at Sweden and the fact that Donald Trump got this, had a treatment, and he's fine, right? He's fine and immune. Look at the fact that the flu disappeared. Does COVID kill the flu? Because if COVID kills the flu, Yahtzee, right? That was a great thing that the Chinese did, right? That economic damage could be turned around by the fact that the flu no longer exists, right? Isn't that weird? 95% reduction in the flu? That's strange. Anyway, regardless, a vaccine to protect against the virus. And I'll show you, hold on, just really quick. This is the Ontario numbers, right? All of Ontario, 79 in ICU. We have 3,800 beds with ICU, and they're looking at further lockdowns. 54, we have more than 3,800. We have 4,000 ICU beds, I believe, and 3,800 of them have vents. And 278 people are hospitalized. This is not going up at nearly the pace as the first wave. And the deaths, we've had 1,042 new cases yesterday. And what was the other one? 790 on the 21st. These are hard to click on, but regardless. There's 978 cases on the 24th. That's a couple of days ago. But the deaths are very low, right? So claiming the vaccine is the only way to get back to normal, I think you're not right. I think you're incorrect. And then look at Sweden. Right? Look at Sweden. Just look at the numbers. I don't think that's accurate. Anyway, we don't have a vaccine, and trying to create demand by saying, oh, we've got to make sure everybody's got access and blah, 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 blah. I'll carry on here. Quote, it's natural that countries want to protect their own citizens first, but if and when we have an effective vaccine, we must also use it effectively. And the best way to do that is to vaccinate some people in all countries rather than all peoples in some countries, he said. Let me be clear. Vaccine nationalism will prolong the pandemic, not shorten it. Scientists around the world are racing to develop a vaccine against COVID-19, which has killed over 1.1 million people. 1.1 million people? The classification of having a COVID death is if you've died with COVID-19. So says the Toronto Public Health. And I believe that's the measurement for the WHO too. So, the numbers are a little suspect. I scroll down. Concerns are growing that countries with smaller wallets could be left out at the back of the queue. The WHO has launched an international scheme. I like the use of the word scheme here. Could you call it a racket? That would be great. Scheme known as COVAX to help ensure equitable access to jobs, but it has struggled to raise the funds needed. Oh my shock, right? Goodness me, what about the children? The WHO on Sunday reported a third straight day of record new infections across the world, calling on countries to take further action to curb the spread of the disease. The agency's figures show that 465,319 cases were declared for Saturday alone, half of them in Europe. Are European countries the countries with the smaller wallets that you're talking about? It seems like they're using anything and everything to justify further lockdown, and they're ignoring the things that show very clearly that we just don't need it. We didn't. If a lockdown worked, why do we need a second one? Right? If a lockdown worked, why are the numbers in the lockdown places rising faster than elsewhere? Right? Here's CTV News Toronto saying, breaking news, this is 21 hours ago. The Ontario government said it's willing to take swift action after a record spike in COVID-19 cases. Adding that Thanksgiving gatherings may be the cause of the massive increase in infections. Thanksgiving gatherings? How? What evidence do you have of this? What evidence at all? None. Zero. They're just making it up. Jim Cariolis, he's setting up the New Blue Party in Ontario. He says, if shutting down businesses in 3 regions works, why are the case numbers going up in those regions at a greater rate than from the regions where businesses are operating? Ford government doesn't know what it's doing. Proof is in the data. And this is in response to Christine Elliott reporting the 1,042 cases that we just looked at. Here is Randy Hillier, and he says, great to see Pam Grill and Jane McKenna getting out from under the boot of Dodgy Doug. Ford Nation, having freedom to speak and represent your constituents is liberating. More mutiny is coming. And here's the Toronto Sun headline from, I think it's Sunday. Yeah, October 25th. That's yesterday. Mutiny. It says Tory MPPs balk at Ford's lockdown measures as daily COVID numbers hit record high. I think it's interesting that the Sun's, sure, those numbers hit the record high, but they're burying the lead with the fact that the case numbers and the death numbers, the case numbers may be a lot higher than the first wave, but the death numbers aren't, right? And that's notable. That's notable. I was talking about, and Doug, during my report on this, one of the MPPs in the Queen's Park kind of implied that maybe the protests in front of Doug's house weren't happening. And I said, well, I think it'd be easy to get video. Here's video. Here's video of the protests happening in front of Doug Ford's house. And this is actually an interesting conversation between the officer and the gentleman here. The officer gets out of the vehicle and they have a conversation. Everything's fine. Like I watched, 10, 12 minutes of the conversation. This guy makes a good point. The officer says it's out of our hands. They're talking about release of criminals, like people who are in for gun crime and theft, et cetera, et cetera. The officer actually says I can let people go for theft. I'm allowed to do that. And it's a very interesting exchange if you're interested in watching it. But I thought it was interesting when the MPP kind of implied that maybe this wasn't actually happening in the news. Like I think it was a talking head guy, or it was a politician guy talking about it, or not it was on one of those talking head programs, or maybe an interview on Twitter. But the implication was that it wasn't actually happening. And well, here's the video. So we live in crazy times, right? Here's an interesting video talking about this guy says he's a doctor, and he explains why mask wearing is bad, explains his experience using masks. I think the more videos like this, the better. Masks just don't help. As far as a whole bunch of, this guy talks about 30 years of data talking about why we've never instituted mandatory masks to deal with the flu, right? And he makes good points. I'm not going to play the video now, but I keep stuff like this for sharing with people, because I think information is the best way to just inform people and tell people, like, you have a choice, and the choice that you're making to just comply without asking questions, without really questioning what are the motivations of the government. And even if they have the best of intentions, even if they've seen data that they believe backs up that their mandatory masks are working, you still have a right to question that. You still have a right to disagree with their conclusions. You still have a right to reject a medical interference or intervention, just because you are human and you have that right. You have that right. And they're going to try and take that away. They are trying to take that away, but you have that right. And so I feel the more that you know, and the more that you're armed, the better. And the more that I'm armed, and armed with information, right? Armed with, did you know this? You should know this. If you're going to blindly follow, you should know this. This is in Caledonia. This is Thomas Carrick, the OPP commissioner. It says the OPP, right? OPP commissioner. You see that? It says protesters falsely blamed OPP for escalation in Caledonia. Extremely proud of my officers for their professional and measured response to keep the peace and preserve life while under attack. Arrests continue as members take responsible and sustained enforcement approach. So what I've heard about this has been going around. What I've heard about this is that if the officers got out, they're trying to bait the officers to get out of the vehicle, and then they're going to attack the officers after they get out of the vehicle. So that's what's happening as far as I've been able to figure out from the Twitter comments, etc. There are a lot of people who are not happy that these guys weren't arrested right away. I'm going to show you, this is 10 years old. Justice at last for Caledonia man arrested for carrying a flag. So if you carry a flag in Caledonia, you get 5 officers, prone position, arrested in handcuffs, and he spent 3 hours in jail. And the Supreme Court had to strike down the charge. So in Alberta, they arrest the Black Lives Matter protester if she gets out of hand, right? RCMP charged anti-racism organizer with assault in connection with Red Deer protest. The Alberta RCMP would like to remind citizens that they are afforded the right to peacefully demonstrate. However, this does not mean unlawful behavior will be tolerated, police said. The role of police is to ensure those who unlawfully interfere with or threaten the safety of any person or property will be held accountable in accordance with the laws of Canada. So, hey, good job, RCMP in Alberta. But in Ontario, the Ontario OPP, people are upset because of this video. Here we go.
And the male with camo is throwing rocks at us. They haven't hit yet.
10-9, who's throwing rocks?
Male party with camo, and we've been lacrosse stick is hitting our cruiser.
Authorize arrest, Mike 9 and 10.
Windshield of our cruiser's broken.
I'll leave it there. Does this keep the public safe? Is this the way that we should be responding? He's very proud of his officers for doing this. I don't want anybody to get beat up. I don't want anybody to have cracked windshields on the patrol cars. I want the police to. I think there should be a rule of law for everyone. I think that if me and a friend were upset and started attacking a cruiser, I don't know if there's context that the officers would stay in their car, right? And fine, it's not likely to happen, but rule of law means that. Like, this is uncomfortable. This is not good. You driving by this and you see a police car being attacked by 2 guys with lacrosse sticks and a broken windshield. That's not healthy, man. That's not good for a country. That's not good for law enforcement. That's not good for morale. That's not good for the morale of the public. That's not good for the morale of the people who are charged to keep the peace. It goes back to this conversation, right? Like, these officers are out there doing a dangerous job, and the courts are letting dangerous people out, people who are committing crimes, weapons crimes, all sorts of crimes. Nothing happens. Right? Alberta, they arrest people. They used to arrest people for waving a flag, right? And now, not so much. Not so much. Very interesting. Very interesting what's going on. This is creeping communism. Here's 8 predictions for the world in 2030, says the World Economic Forum. You want to be terrified? This was from 2016. Holy cow. And jeepers creepers. You'll own nothing and you'll be happy. Look how happy he is. Look how indoctrinated he is. The whole video is terrifying. But the reason I wanted to highlight that video was making the rounds yesterday. The Great Rethink, why Canada needs to return to its honest broker role in the world affairs. Deglobalization became a buzzword back in March when we were fighting over toilet paper. The answer to shortages of staples, face masks, ventilators, and medicine seemed obvious. Local production, sprawling international supply chains had to get shorter. It was a matter of life and death. Guess what? It's not happening, at least not in a significant way. No. Keith Creel, Chief Executive of Canadian Pacific Railway Limited, bluntly said on October 20th when an analyst asked him if CP's customers were talking about near-shorting. The Bank of Canada has uncovered a similar sentiment. In the near term, most firms do not expect to pivot away from their existing processes and relationships, the central bank said in its Business Outlook survey on October 19th. Furthermore, merchandise imports from China averaged $4.27 billion per month between April and August, compared with an average of $3.83 billion over the same period in 2019, according to Statistics Canada. Globalization continues apace, meaning international policy is as important as ever. That's unfortunate because Canada's approach to world affairs has rarely looked more tentative and confused. The lack of strategy means the country is setting up to be a follower in a world where more focused nations shape the rules and norms that will govern climate change, security, technological standards, and international taxation and trade. So we're moving slow and we seem confused in our response. That's kind of standard across the board for Canada since Justin Trudeau took over. It's unfortunate, but true. This is Supply Professional, and this was published today, 26th. Yeah, today's the 26th. It says motion could deter domestic production of PPE. So I thought this was a yin and yang kind of thing, but it's actually, it's more the demand for, this is demand for the documentation is getting the people who stepped up, the liberal insiders, if there are liberal insiders. There's at least one, the ventilator guy, the ex-MP whose company makes ventilators that aren't approved anywhere. He's one who's at least in on this, that doesn't want the information to become public. So they're saying, if this information becomes public, then you're going to wreck your relationship with your local suppliers, and we're just not going to have it. We're just not going to have it. So that's what this says. Motion could deter domestic production of PPE. Canadian companies that answered the government call to produce ventilators and other desperately needed equipment during the COVID-19 pandemic said they're worried opposition MPs are now demanding disclosure of the contracts they signed with Ontario. And they're warning they'll be less likely to step up in the future if they can't trust the government to keep sensitive business information confidential. Don't you tell on us. If you tell on us, we're not going to give you any product. But if they don't give product, they don't exist. So it's kind of an empty threat, right? Michelle Rempel-Garner, the conservative health critic who penned a sweeping motion to compel the disclosure, said that companies are being needlessly worried by a Liberal government that does not want scrutiny of its COVID-19 pandemic spending. Her motion would order the government to turn over to the House of Commons Health Committee all records on draft issues related to the government's handling of the pandemic, including the purchase of personal protective equipment, medical devices, and pharmaceuticals. It's poised to pass in the Commons vote on Monday, that's today, with the support of the Bloc and the NDP. One quarter of the CME's 90,000 members stepped up to help with COVID-19 response, said Darby, and he's worried that politicizing this process will make them reluctant to do so again. Quote, if these disclosures are too broad, it will negatively impact business operations for manufacturers in Canada and around the globe. Furthermore, we worry that the repercussions of many manufacturers will be the reputations of many manufacturers will be unfairly tarnished. Why would they worry that? They stepped up to provide local PPE, and now they're worried that their reputations are going to be tarnished? That seems like a strange thing to worry about, right? Weird. I mean, like, you'd think we don't want to take credit for all that good we did. You know, we want it just to be in the public good, right? But no. We don't want people to know about it because they might tarnish our reputation unfairly. Seems weird. Rempel-Garner said these concerns are being generated by complete liberal spin. Good one, Michelle. She said that the motion has safeguards to protect national security, personal health information, and proprietary contractual data, and the companies should not be concerned. The parliamentary law clerk would be tasked with ensuring that information is redacted before release, said Rempel-Garner. I have faith in that process, she said. I think it's really just the Liberals trying to delay the information, to delay the production of documents. How could you have faith in that process after we? Yes, we know that we asked for all of these documents, and we know that all of them got pretty much redacted to the point where they're useless. However, I have faith in that process, and don't you worry, you companies, you. And I'm not going to ask you why you would be worried about your reputations being tarnished. It's right there. It's low-hanging fruit. I mean, you don't even have to pick it off the tree. You could just go, right? My goodness. Blacklock reporter is saying Cabinet gives CBC a pandemic bailout to compensate for disastrous ad revenue slide driven in turn by disastrous audience numbers. I would love to see the number of website hits the CBC gets daily. I would just love to see it and compare to my websites. Just because, I mean, not to say that my Canadian news sites are well trafficked or anything like that, but I'm just interested in how I compare 1/3, 1/10, right? 1/100ths? Hundredths? I don't know. I'm just interested. If anybody knows, I guess I could just look on the ranking thing. But still, I don't know if that gives an accurate, because it gives all CBC properties, right? Anyway, regardless. I could probably drill down to CBC News. Ottawa Citizen is saying Canada's Atlantic region closed out world to beat COVID-19, and the economy has done okay. Okay. That success came at a cost. More than 171,000 jobs were lost, exports plunged, and the region's $5 billion tourism sector was crippled, with all 4 provinces swinging from economic growth to sudden contraction. I think we have a different definition of okay. After months of strict restrictions and mandatory quarantines, the 4 Atlantic provinces began to allow travel between themselves in early July amid concerns the sudden freedom would lead to rash outbreaks. That did not happen. Nope, it didn't happen. And it hasn't happened really across Canada. Just cases. Outbreaks, sure, but it's just cases, right? And cases. It doesn't really mean much. It just doesn't, right? Without the rest of it happening too, it's forgettable, right? And we're not even using HCQ or any of the other recommended and used. I can't remember what Trump got, Remdimserv or something like that. There was he called it a specific thing, but it was an intervention that is not a vaccine, and he seems fine, and he's going out in public, right? Seems interesting. Suspects in alleged Markham illegal casino mansion linked to BC casino suspect. This is all part of that swirling China stuff that I've been talking about. I think that's probably one of the biggest stories underreported. Go watch this. This is about Hunter Biden, but it has more to do. Watch it for the role. Watch it for the strategy they use. This describes the strategy. They find a politician, they find dirt on them or their family, and then they use that to make the politician do things that they want the politician to do, right? Like this one, right? Like yikes, right? It's a very, very clear strategy, articulated very well. Like it's very, very clear. So between the BC casino, and this is an interesting development. This is probably one of the biggest deals in Canadian energy patch in a long time. So this is interesting, right? Big news in Canadian energy, Cernovus Energy to buy Husky Energy in an all-stock deal worth $23.6 billion, right? This is, and I didn't highlight anything here, but I wanted to show you who owns Husky. Who owns Husky first, and then who owns Cernovus. So it's moving from Husky, from a Hong Kong billionaire, La Qixing, through Hutchinson Holdings, to Cernovus Energy, which is largely U.S. The ownership is largely Canada-U.S. That's an interesting shift. I didn't expect that. So when I read that this morning, I was actually expecting Husky to be U.S.-Canada owned, and Cernovus, Cernovus, to be more Chinese owned. But the opposite is true. So is this an extraction of money? Is this an agreement? Is this a deal? Is this, like with the political strife in Hong Kong right now, it seems like an interesting time to make this deal, right? Very interesting stuff happening. I don't know how this all ties together. I don't at all, or if it ties together, right? I have no idea. I'm just speculating based on if I was a kingpin taking Joe Biden into my I don't know, group of holdings, right? Into my group of holdings is fine. I would probably be looking for other assets. If I was looking for other assets and I was targeting the United States, where would I target? Mexico? Or maybe Canada, right? Like if I was targeting Canada, right, what would the next step be, right? It's pretty obvious. It's pretty obvious to me anyway, but who knows? I'm just speculating. Very interesting. And all this finances, very interesting. And the masking, my goodness. What is going to happen? I'm not sure, but November 3rd is the next big day. And Biden's put a lid on campaigning before the rest of the U.S. election. Just unbelievable with the stuff going on, right? And, I think it's going to get even more wild between now and then. But I don't think much is going to meaningfully happen between now and November 3rd. I think there's going to be drip, 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 drip. But I don't know that there's going to be any kind of really big turns in anything. I don't know that even to the lockdowns in Ontario. I think that there are people who are calling for more lockdowns in Ontario, but I don't know that anything major is going to shift, because it's kind of, it seems like a weird balance where there's so much happening that just not much else could possibly happen. Maybe I'll be completely wrong. Who knows? I've been wrong in the past. So that's fine. Thanks for watching, everybody. Check out CanadaPoly.com. Check out CanadaReport.co. Check out SpeakingMoistly.co. I'll be recording another one tomorrow. We'll probably talk about creeping communism. That'll be interesting. And have a wonderful, wonderful